Om Sarvadharmastapakastvam Sarvadharmaswarupakah Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Te Namaha. We are studying here Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, second part, that is Sadhak Bhav. And we are to start today 16th chapter. The name of the chapter is Epilogue of the Master's Vedanta Sadhana and his practice of Islam. Now, and connects two things. So there seems to be some connection between Vedanta Sadhana and Islam. And you may say how it is very strange. But and has connected the two. And the meaning which comes to our mind is that Vedanta Sadhana real is such that it broadens the mind infinitely. Vedanta Sadhana ideally should remove all the constrictions of the mind, all the limitations of the thinking of man must break away. That is Vedanta Sadhana. Though we do not find like that in the world, Vedanta Sadhana, I find, makes the mind narrow. And they say that nothing else will do, nothing else will do, without understanding the anatomy of moksha. So, it is very clear here, and we shall see as we proceed. Saradananda Swamiji, that is what he means, that Vedanta Sadhana has broadened the master's mind infinitely. And for him, there is nothing ours and yours. There is nothing belonging to the country and outside. Nothing. Though ordinarily people feel that Hinduism and Islam are opposite to each other. But in the master's mind, it was not so, especially after he did Vedanta Sadhana. So now, first of all, let us see what is the epilogue of Vedanta Sadhana. In the Bengali, Vedanta Sadhaner Shesh Katha, or Islam Dharma Sadhana. So Vedanta Sadhaner Shesh Katha, we understand remaining things about Vedanta Sadhana. Let us see what are those remaining things. The severe disease of the master and his unique behavior at that time. So in the previous chapter we have seen that to bring the mind from that lofty thoughts of the Vedanta, he cured Jagdamba Dasi of her fatal dysentery. On Mathur Babu's appeal that I will lose the chance to serve you. And so he took over that sin or whatever had caused Jagdamba Dasi's disease upon his own body. And for 6 months, he suffered by that dysentery. Now, what was his behavior like? Had the mind really come down? That let us see. Unique behavior at this time. Now the master's strong body was shattered and he suffered from illness for a few months, either as a result of his curing the fatal disease of Jagdamadasi, as mentioned above, or of his superhuman efforts for 6 long months to dwell continually in the plane of the non-dual consciousness. Or does not mean or here, it means and. Because 6 months he had not taken food properly. He was not aware of his body. So what will happen to that body? So that had already shattered the body. And added to that is this disease of dysentery. How much dysentery weakens a man that those who have suffered know. We were told by him, and that he calls as superhuman efforts. We were told by him that he had then a severe attack of dysentery. His nephew Hriday engaged himself in nursing him day and night. Mathur placed him under the treatment of Ganga Prasad Sen, the most famous Ayurvedic doctor of that time, the famous physician, and made special arrangements for his diet, etc. Although his body was so severely ill, the extraordinary calmness and the incessant bliss enjoyed by his mind. So the Vedanta makes the mind calm, unruffled, the world is not real at all, and the bliss is found within permanently, so that is not affected by the disease of the body. Yasmi sitona dukkhena guruna vichalyate, says the Gita. So outside there may be dukkha, but the inner bliss is not affected at all. So this we see the proofs of Vedanta. Freed from all body consciousness, beggar description, that means it cannot be described. His mind would separate itself from the body, the disease, and all other objects of the world at the slightest suggestion, and would soar to the faraway Nirvikalpa plane at once. No sooner did it hear the word Brahman, Self, or Ishvara, these three have the same meaning. Then it merged in its content the meaning of that word, forgetting all other things and its own separate existence for some time. So again he used to go to Nirvikal Samadhi again and again. Therefore it is clear that in spite of that severe pain in his body owing to the fury of the disease, he actually felt very little of it. That is the most important point. How much does it treat inside where he stays? Let me quote some incident. During his last days on this earth, physically, he was suffering from excruciating pain of the cancer of the throat. And at that time, Swami Vivekananda asked Mahapurush Maharaj and Kali Maharaj, Swami Abhedananda, to come with him and went to Buddha Gaya for a week and came back. So Latu Maharaj was asked, how is it possible that Swami Vivekananda, who loved Thakur so much and was engaged in nursing him, how did he go in spite of such pain in Thakur's body? To which Latu Maharaj replied, Loren bhaiya janto je Thakurer kono kashta nai. Naren brother knew that Thakur has no pain inside. So that is the state of affairs. We can't say that there was no pain outside, but inside there was no pain. He actually felt very little of it. I am tempted to tell something about my Guruji. The doctor attending said, for many days we are not at all checked from the beginning if there is any problem of blood urea. So he contacted this pathological laboratory. They said, you are a doctor, so you yourself collect blood and send to us, and we'll send you the report at 5 p.m. So he took the blood and sent it to the lab. But 5 became 5:15 and no report came from them. So our Swami, revered Swami Bhaumananji was attending on him, phoned the laboratory. Is there any difficulty for sending the report? They said, no, we don't have any difficulty, but will you please come here in person? So Bhaumananji went and they asked, is the man alive whose blood you have sent us? Or have you sent the blood from a corpse? And if he is alive, is he in coma? Such urine count in the blood we have not imagined in all our profession. And what was the reaction here on this side? For the past 15 days or so, he used to say, I am feeling a bit drowsy these days. Feeling a bit drowsy these days. So understand what is said here, how little of it he felt. So that which would kill a man or put him in coma, he was feeling a little drowsy. So that is the nature of Brahmajnan. So in Thakur, we see how little of that pain he felt when he was suffering from dysentery. But that pain due to the disease, we heard from the Master himself, brought down his mind at times from high planes of spiritual experience and made it conscious of his body. This much it did. That pain of dysentery brought his mind down from the highest plane to the level of the body. The Master said it was during this period that the foremost of the Paramahamsas, the followers of the Vedanta, used to come to him. See this strange thing. His room was then always reverberating with the sounds of their utterances on the discussion of the Vedantic truths. Not this, not this. Being, revealing, rejoicing. Let me tell the original words. हाँ ठाकुर बोले थे यही काले तार निकट वेदांत मार्ग विचरणशील साधकाग्रणी परमहंस सकले आगमन হইয়াছিল এবং नेति नेति अस्ति भाति प्रिय अयमात्मा ब्रह्म प्रवृत्ति वेदांत प्रसिद्ध तत्व समूहेर विचार ध्वनित ताहार मास मुखे निरंतर मुखरित হইয়া থাকিত. So the question is, not this, we have understood many times. Being, revealing, rejoicing, asti bhati priya. What is that? Now generally, Brahman is described, indescribable, but we describe it as Satchit Ananda. This Satchit Ananda seems to be an objective description of Brahman. But when Brahman is experienced, the words change. Sat becomes Asti. Brahman is there. Bhati. It is conscious or it shows itself. Priya. Ananda becomes Priya. So the sadhus who were high-class Vedanti sadhaks had experienced and they were discussing with each other these truths behind these terms. So that is the point. And the self is Brahman. I am Atma Brahma. And so on and so forth. Many other sentences of Vedantic dicta. When during the discussion of those high Vedantic dicta, they could not arrive at the right conclusion on any question, the master had to become the umpire and decide it. Need we say that had he been always distracted like other people on account of the disease, it would never have been possible for him constantly to take part in those abstruse philosophical discussions. So he could understand their problem and solve it immediately because he was living that Vedanta. That is the epilogue, one point of epilogue of Vedantic sadhana. The master's auditive experience, when he was established in the non-dual state, the results of that experience. Auditive means what he used to hear. By the end of the period, when he was continuing in the Nirvikalpa plane, the master had, we have said elsewhere, a wonderful auditive experience, a realization he was now commanded for the third time to remain in Bhavamukti. Though we call it an auditive experience, the reader should understand by it a realization in his heart of hearts. For the master did not hear it unlike as he did twice before from the mouth of any visible figure. So, this you have to understand. Bhavamukha has reappeared, which we studied in Guru Bhav. And Bhav means positive existence, subtle, gross, everything. Mukh means source. So Bhavamukh means the source of all positive existences in which we call the world. And remain there. That means don't stay permanently in the Nirvikalpa state. The prayojan, the purpose of your being born as an avatar will not be served unless you are again and again entering the Nirvikal Samadhi as Thakur was. The purpose of this unique incarnation would not have been served. But if he permanently remains there, then also the purpose would not be served. How the world will benefit from it. So, now it is mentioned that this was the third time. First time, Haradhari was poking at him and he felt that one devotee used to come to the temple, a woman, and he saw that his divine mother, in the form of that woman, is telling him, stay in Bhavamukti. Second time, again Haldari was troubling him, and he saw Brahma. The description is like smoke, and from that a beautiful figure with beard and all that. So Brahma, the personified Bhavamukti, he appeared and he told him to remain in Bhavamukti. Now this is the third time he has entered Nirvikal Samadhi and he is now one with that Brahma. He is now one with his Divine Mother. So in his own mind, this thought arose. But It is called auditive because as if somebody spoke this sentence. So, who spoke? His own inner reality. But it spoke and he heard it. So it is called auditive experience. That is what Saradananda Swamiji is telling us now. He did not hear it unlike as he did twice before from the mouth of any visible figure. But the master's mind had the immediate consciousness of the existence of that idea or will in the cosmic mind of the omnipresent Brahman. Brahman is present everywhere. Cosmic mind belongs to Brahman. That is what is called Brahma also. So Thakur is now identified with that cosmic mind. And there this thought arose that I am born in this world as an avatar for redeeming people who are merged in samsara. And if I remain in Nirvikalpa, how can it be established? So it came in the cosmic mind, which was Thakur's mind at that time. That idea or will in the cosmic mind, idea or will, because he has to do like that. In the cosmic mind of the omnipresent Brahman, as it was remaining most of the time in complete oneness with the Absolute. So that is that Bhamuk Avastha. Almost always remaining in Advaita, sometimes coming down to this world. That position is called Bhamuk. Remaining most of the time in complete oneness with the Absolute, the non-dual being, and at times getting separated from it partially, was realizing that it was a part of the all-pervading Brahman, the mind, with attributes, Sagun Brahman, the mother of the universe. Same thing is called mother of the universe by Sri Ramakrishna. It is not a particularized deity or Tamoguni deity or any such thing. It may be for people. But for Master, that Divine Mother was nothing but Ishvara, and that has the cosmic mind, and there this thought has arisen. On account of that realization, the future purpose of his life stood completely revealed to him. Completely revealed to him. Though from childhood he used to feel that sometimes. But now, after everything is eradicated by Nirvikalpa Samadhi, he now clearly, first Nirvikalpa Samadhi was, he did not stay in it. Now he has become habituated to that. So in this most purified mind, that idea came that his purpose of his being born is to help the people, not for himself. So stood the purpose, future purpose of his life stood completely revealed to him. For he is explaining that. For not standing in need of a body, nor at all desires to continue in life, yet commanded again to remain in bhava according to the inscrutable will of the Universal Mother. Inscrutable will, we cannot understand it, but it is the will of the Mother. The Master now came to know that he had to live in the body thenceforward in accordance with the will and purpose of the sportive divine. That is called the sport. Why it is called the sport? Not real and yet experiencing that. That is called sport. Leela. Some people, if they say, we accept Leela, we don't accept Maya, don't listen to them. They don't understand anything. Leela means Maya. In spite of world not being real, if I can stay in this world, that is only called Leela. Leela is not simply playing with the gopis or doing this or that or that. Leela means with the Brahma consciousness staying in this world. So that is called sport. Leela, sport. Purpose of the sportive divine. And that he had been so commanded because his body could not continue to live where, where he to remain eternally identified with Brahman. He also came to know his former life. So, Jati Smaratva, normally it comes just before Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Jati Smaratva, a sadhak remembers all his past life and he sees that hundreds of times he has been born. He had hundreds of fathers, mothers, wives, children. So his attachment completely vanishes at that point and he gets Parama Vairagya. This is what Patanjali has described in the Patanjali Sutras, Yoga Sutras, because he is the most expert in the matters of the mind. So there, how the mind behaves, that is called Jati Smarat. But in Thakur, there was no place for that because the mind flew into Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So, we have seen from the beginning, Saradananda Swami has told us that incarnations or adhikarik purushas, the fruit comes first and then the leaves, flowers. So, it is after Nirvikalpa Samadhi that this Jati Smarta came to Thakur. Now, what he saw? What were the previous lives? He also came to know his former lives through Jati Smaratva, the power of remembering past lives, and that he was an adhikarik person, or rather an incarnation of God. Adhikari means born for a definite purpose. Born for a, he has certain adhikar, capacity, and he has to perform that. But in his case, he was not only an adhikarik person, so it says adhikarik person or rather an incarnation of God, eternally pure in nature, who now assumed a body and performed austerities, etc., in order to rescue the modern age from the decline of religion. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirvavati abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamam. So here also, please forget the idea of 10 incarnations and to bring about the well-being of humanity. So, Dharma Sansthapanartha Paritranaya Sadhunam. He came to know, moreover, that it was with a view to accomplishing some special purpose of hers, of the Divine Mother, that the Universal Mother had brought him down on earth into a poor Brahmin family. Why he was born poor? As one devoid of all grandeur of external powers. That means the uniqueness of Thakur. No external glory of Rajogunas or that. Only Sattvagun concentrated. He came to know further that only a few people would be able to know and understand during his lifetime the mystery of that play of the Divine Mother. So during Thakur's lifetime, few people only could understand that his incarnation and that as soon as the generality of people would begin to understand it, the mother would absorb her child into her own person. So when many people will come to know, because he is of such a liberal mind that he may give spirituality without there being any capacity in that man. That is not wanted. So, when many people will come to know, he will go back. But that the spiritual waves which his body and mind would generate would go on surging with even greater momentum. He may leave the body, but the waves which he produces, vibrations, spiritual atmosphere, that would continue with greater, even greater momentum when he goes back to the subtler bodies and would bring after his passing away plenitude of well-being to humanity for all time. That is what is happening today. What the scriptures say about the attainment of the power of remembering previous life just before realizing Brahman, So what I told just now is being described by Sadhana Swamiji. We must remember some of the statements in the scriptures. If we have to understand how the master could have those extraordinary experiences, the aspirants say the scriptures, that is Patanjali Yoga, for example. Attain Jati Smaratva before he becomes established, fully established in the pure consciousness itself with the help of the non-dual mood. In other words, with the fullest development of the remembrance, his memory reaches such a mature state that the entire history of his transmigration, this ordinary Jiva's description, how, where, and how many times he had to be encased in bodies, and what actions, good or evil, he had performed, is revealed with a terrible vividness. Consequently, the transitoriness of everything in the world and the futility of the pursuit of worldly enjoyments on of being born again and again under the same general conditions. That means born again and again, some conditions may differ, but generally in the same conditions are driven home to him. The intense detachment which then arises in his heart frees him from all desires whatsoever. That when some instinct arises, we feel it is come the first time. But there he understands that thousands of innumerable times I have undergone all this, so I don't want any more. What the scriptures say about the attainment of yogic powers and the state in which all resolves come true. So some more epilogues of Vedanta sadhana. The Upanishad says, footnote tells us, Chandogya Upanishad. The previous footnote from Patanjali Yoga Sutras, those who want to know the wording, Sadhana Swamiji has given them Sanskara Sakshat Karanat Purvajati Jnanam. Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Vibhuti Pad, 18th Sutra. Third chapter is called Vibhuti Pad, the special powers, and there it is included in the 18th Sutra. Now here, Chandogya Upanishad, the Upanishad says that the resolves of such persons always come true because it is the universal mind. And their minds, through samadhi, can perceive any sphere they like. So any loka, they can go. So that is described in Chandogya. Whether of gods or of forebears, here that hyphen business has come, forefathers, forebears, Pitrulok, Devalok, any, or of any other beings, other lokas. Patanjali, this is from Chandogya, then above Patanjali, the great sage mentions in his Yoga Sutras that all kinds of yogic powers are attained by such persons. So, he does not strive for a particular power, but this being merged in the universal mind, all powers are his. Again, the author of the Panchadashi, this is a book by two authors, intellectually describing many truths of Vedanta. Again, the author of the Panchadashi, synthesizing this apparent contradiction coexisting in the same person, namely the attainment of yogic powers and the absence of desire. Because yogic powers come, it is not for some desire that he has, says that although they attain such wonderful powers, they never apply them to further their own interest. Selfishness is already gone. For the simple reason that they do not have any such desire. So what will they fulfill if they do not have any desire? Absolutely dependent on the will of God, the Adhikarika persons alone amongst them apply at times those powers for the well-being of the many. For that only it can be applied to change the course of life of those who are fit enough. That is why the author of the Panchadashi says that such a person has the power but not the urge to change the worldly circumstances in which he attains the knowledge of Brahman and spends his time in that state. So for himself he is not applying that. For helping some person he is applying that. So what happens? Saradan Swamiji is hinting here, we want to know what were Thakur's habits before he had miracle samadhi. So Saradan Swamiji will tell us what we saw, same thing must have been there because he has not changed it. He does not feel the requirement for change. The causes producing the master's extraordinary realization become understandable when we study his life in the light of the above mentioned sayings of the scriptures. That is why in the preface he had told that many places we have to refer to scriptures. So, all these things are mentioned in the scriptures, but unless somebody demonstrates it, people won't understand. So, Thakur demonstrated it. Scriptures can be understood in the light of Thakur's life, and Thakur's life can be understood only in the light of scriptures. If one studies the master's life of this period in the light of the scriptural sayings quoted above, the how and why of most of the extraordinary realizations, if not all of them, why not all of them? That incarnations are beyond scriptures also. So we'll have to refer to the group of incarnation. So not all of them stand fully revealed. One can understand how, as a result of his wholehearted offering of himself at the lotus feet of the Divine Lord, he could attain perfect desirelessness, and how in such a short time, so short a time, he ascended and firmly established himself in the Nirvikalpa plane of knowledge of Brahman. So because desires are given up, it becomes easy. One can understand how he attained Jati Smaratva, as a result of which he had the immediate knowledge that the one who had manifested himself as Rama and Krishna, so that is Thakur Jati Smaratva. In past ages, and did good to humanity, had again assumed a body and manifested himself in the present age as Ramakrishna. Why Ramakrishna? Rama's life and Krishna's teachings. One can understand why he never applied the divine powers for the comforts of his own body and mind, though their manifestations for the good of humanity were matters of almost daily occurrence. So every day to help somebody, he would use some of the power, but never for himself. Were matters of almost daily occurrence. Why he could and did awaken in others the power of realizing spiritual truths by a mere glance or wish, and why his extraordinary influence is slowly and surely spreading into and acquiring mastery over all the countries of the world. So even though he is not apparently physically present, the effect through his disciples and their disciples is spreading throughout the world, from himself and through his disciples. Why the experiences mentioned before were not had simultaneously? Because most of the time he would be in Nirvikal Samadhi. Thus did the master know the past and future of his life at the time of his coming down to the realm of ideas, bhav, from the non-dual state, though he was firmly established in that state. So apparently coming down. But all those experiences do not seem to have come to him on one day or all of a sudden. He, we infer, had the perfect knowledge of all these things in a year after his coming down to the realm of ideas. So many experiences and so many times Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So it took about 1 year to get all this. During this time, the mother of the universe was removing, as it were, veil after veil from before his eyes, explaining clearly those things to him day after day. So that is how it can be described, removing veil after veil. If we are asked why all those experiences were not revealed simultaneously to the master's mind, we reply that established in the non-dual state of consciousness and completely lost in the bliss of Brahman, he had no time or inclination to know them, till the modification of his mind took an outward direction. So from Nirvikalpa, if it takes outward direction, then he will find all these things. Outward direction for him, for us to that reach that state, is the innermost thing. Thus was fulfilled the Master's earnest prayer to the Mother of the Universe at the beginning of his sadhana. Mother, I do not know at all what I should do. I will learn what thou thyself will teach me. So, he is not wanting to know all this, but what Mother revealed, that means after Nirvikal Samadhi, what he got, that is all this. The realization of the Master that the attainment of the non-dual consciousness is the ultimate aim of all discipline. So this is now, he has known the ultimate truth. And now it is revealed to him that this is the highest point where every human being should endeavor to come. There is nothing beyond this. Firmly established in the plane of the non-dual consciousness, the master had the realization of another fact also. He came to feel in his heart of hearts, so it is a realization within, that the realization of non-duality was the ultimate aim of all kinds of disciplines. For having performed sadhanas according to the teachings of all main religious denominations prevalent in India, so he had undergone all sadhanas. And at the end of each sadhana, he had reached Advaita. And now he is fully established in Advaita. So he knows that the end of all sadhanas is Advaita. Prevalent in India, he had already been convinced that they all took the aspirants toward the non-dual plane. Asked about the non-dual state, he therefore said to us over and over again, it is the final, my child. Final, that means the last point. My child, the akim, which comes of itself in the life of all aspirants as the ultimate development of their love of God. So one need not seek it even. If they really love God, that love will make them merge in God. That is another important statement of Sri Ramakrishna. Know it to be the last word of all faiths, and the faiths are only paths and not the goal. So they are paths, they make the sadhak reach the goal. The above mentioned realization of the master was never fully grasped by anyone before. Now it was not necessary in those days. Previously, each person, each land was an island. Nobody bothered about what the other is doing. But now science has brought the whole world physically very close to each other. And so it was necessary to know my brother that his thing and my thing are not different in the ultimate aim. All these are paths. So previous incarnations had no need of this. And so they had not realized that. So this is a combined and new edition, combined and revised edition of our incarnations. Summation and consummation of our incarnations. This is what Swami Vivekananda and Swami Saradananda have said. Having thus had the direct experience of non-duality, the master's mind was filled with unbounded Catholicity. Catholicity means broadness. Unbounded Catholicity. This is what should happen by Vedanta sadhana. He had now an extraordinary sympathy for all the religious communities which taught that the aim of human life was the realization of God. If they taught like that, if they did not teach like this, then how they can be the paths? So, Saradan Swami has added a significant clause here. Let me be sure that Bengali has said this. Hmm. हाँ, yes. ईश्वर लाभ के जहारा मानव जीवनेर उद्देश्य बोलिया शिक. Very wonderful statement. Wonderful statement. Very important statement. Not Sarvadharma Saman. If they do not tell that realization of God is the ultimate aim, where has it been mentioned in Quran? But there is a sect of Muslims called the Sufis. They believe this. And so Thakur followed Sufism. So remember this very clearly. So he had now an extraordinary sympathy for all the religious communities which taught that the aim of human life was the realization of God. Just not flatly telling everything is real. But he did not realize at first that the said Catholicity and sympathy were his discoveries, because in others we have not found this, and that no aspirant, not even the foremost of them in the past, could attain them as fully as he, because he actually practiced everything. He, such is our impression, became gradual. Our impression. In the bracket, they have added, such is our impression. He became gradually acquainted with that fact by coming in contact with the wise sadhakas belonging to various religious communities at the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar and at other well-known places of pilgrimage. But thenceforward, he was very much wounded whenever he came across one-sidedness in religion, and he tried in all ways to remove their mean attitude. My teacher used to say, all faiths, all, all faiths are paths, but fanaticism is neither a faith nor a path. किंतु एरूप उदारता एक कथा प्रथमे तारितंगम है नहीं सहित मिलित हो जाता एक होता जो चलो. So here, I think that our impression is not necessary. He is telling the truth. So, in Thakur's words of condemnation, we will find Kam Kanchan, that. And next we will find one-sidedness must be given up. Because if you are one-sided, you are limiting the concept of God itself. You may like something, you may not like something. That does not limit God. But if you say, oh, this alone is true and not that, you are limiting God itself. And so Thakur did not like it at all. This meanness, the master's practice of Islam. So that is how the Islam has come into being now. The master's practice of Islam, an example of the liberality of his mind established in a non-dual knowledge. I told you the other day, some people said if Hinduism was it not sufficient that he practiced Islam. All is for the humanity. We have to live in this India especially. We have to live. All religions are to exist. They should exist in harmony. Those who believe God realization. We can clearly understand from an event of this time how liberal the master's mind, which was firmly poised in the non-dual knowledge, now became. The master who has seen was ill for a few months after he had reached the zenith of in the practice of the non-dual mood. The event came to pass when he had come round. So after he became all right, then this event has come. A short time previously, one Govinda Rai had been in search of truth for some time. Hriday told us that he was a Kshatriya by birth. He was perhaps learned in Persian and Arabic, having studied various religious doctrines and come in contact with different religious communities. He was at last attracted by the liberal doctrine of Islam. Liberal doctrine in the sense they say that all of us are brothers. So if you find something totally at variance with the present circumstances, Saradananda is not at fault. He is mentioning the Sufism and some of the aspects of Islam. And was formally initiated into it. Govinda, thirsting for truth, accepted the Islamic faith, but we cannot say how far he followed its social manners and customs. So there are two parts of Islam. And most of the Islamists say they adhere to the social norms and customs and say this is Islam. Let me joke a little. These days there is a word fundamentalism, and that which has nothing to do with fundamentals of religion is called fundamentalism. That which makes you stick to the outside social aspect of that religion is called fundamentalism. Kali Yuga. But since he became initiated, he, we were told, engaged himself ardently in the reading of the Quran and in religious practices according to the process prescribed by that scripture. So from Quran take only the spiritual sadhana part. Govinda was an ardent lover of God. So inside love is there. The method of worshipping God according to the teaching and mental attitude prevalent among the Sufis, it is clearly mentioned here, followers of a sect of Islam, seems to have captivated his mind For he now became engaged day and night in practicing devotional modes like the dervishes. Dervishes are the Sufi saints, the devotees belonging to that sect. So, one word. भाव साधन है और अत्र नियुक्त था कितने ठीक है भाव साधन has been translated into devotional moods. We could say relational aspect, that is bhav sadhana. The arrival of the Sufi Govinda Rai. Somehow or other, Govinda now came to the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. We do not know why, only to help Thakur, and began to spend his time there with his seat spread under the peaceful shade of the Panchavati, which he thought was a place favorable to religious practices, because Thakur had practiced there. Muslim fakirs as well as Hindu sadhus who had renowned the world were welcome at Rasmani's Kali temple. That also had the influence. And the hospitality of the temple was equally accorded to both of them. Therefore, while staying there, Govinda had not to go around for alms. He spent his days joyfully meditating on his chosen ideal. The master's resolve after talking with Govinda. The master was attracted toward the devout Govinda, so any sadhak master would be attracted. And happening to converse with him was charmed with Govinda's sincere faith in and love for God. That is what has attracted him. Thus was the master's mind now attracted towards the Islamic religion. This also thought he is a path to the realization of God. The sportive mother, the source of infinite Leela, has been blessing many people with the attainment of her lotus feet through this path also. This another beautiful way of feeling. My Ishta has become all this. So, Holy Mother, Divine Mother is blessing everybody through this path. I must see how through it she makes those who take refuge in her attain their desired end. So distinctions are lost. Everything is willed by the cosmic consciousness. I will be initiated by Govinda and engage myself in the practice of that spiritual mode. Initiated by Govinda, the master succeeded in the sadhana. Thought was immediately followed by action. The master expressed his desire to Govinda, became initiated and engaged himself in practicing Islam according to his prescribed rules. The master said, I then devotionally repeated the holy syllable Allah, wore cloth like the Muslims, said namaz thrice daily, and felt disinclined even to see Hindu deities. 10% is 10% with him. Not to speak of saluting them, inasmuch as the Hindu mode of thought vanished altogether from my mind. It is something unique, beyond imagination. I spent 3 days in that mood and I had the full realization of the result of practice according to that faith. So 3 days are enough for me. At the time of practicing Islam, the master at first had the vision of an effulgent, impressive personage with a long beard, that is Muhammad. Afterwards, he had the knowledge of the all-pervading Brahman with the attribute, so Sagun Sarvapi Brahman, and merged finally in the attributeless Brahman, the Absolute. So that is Master's uniqueness. Through Islam, he found the founder of Islam, he entered Saguna Brahman and then Nirguna Brahman. the behavior of the master at the time of practicing Islam, because he would take everything 100%. Outside Kinna also. At the time of practicing Islam, the master wanted, said Hriday, to take Muslim food. It was Mathur's solicitous request only that made him refrain from doing so. Knowing that the childlike master would not abstain from it if the desire of his were not at least partially fulfilled, master had a cook brought under whose instruction a Brahmin cook prepared. A cook brought? Main word is missed. Musalman Prachar. Mathur had a Muslim cook brought. Under whose instruction a Brahmin cook prepared food in the Muslim manner. So, Mathur keeping something, masters having his desire fulfilled, which was given to the master to eat. The master did not even once enter the inner courtyard of the Kali temple while practicing Islam, but remained in the mansion of Mathur situated outside, that owner's kutia. One more para we shall read. It appears from the practice of Islam by the master. Okay, tomorrow. We have come to the end of this epilogue. Just a page remains, but we'll read it tomorrow. Om Sarvadharma Stapakastvam Sarvadharma Swarupakah Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Te Namaha Om Shanti 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 Hare Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.